Welcome everybody to A Call for Love, and allow me to introduce Antonia. She is a registered psychotherapist, Ayurvedic counselor, yoga and meditation teacher. In 2006, she experienced a spontaneous awakening that set off a remarkable journey of expansion. During this transformative process, she released a tremendous amount of energy and transcended deep-seated pain. As the discomfort faded away, it brought forth a profound sense of connection to her inner self and the world around her. Through this journey, Antonia came to realize that we are all created beings with the power to turn our suffering into love. And she is here today, not only to talk to us about her journey, but even more importantly, about her book, Dismantling the Third Dimension, which I have purchased and I am finding so affirmative to what I believe and so inspirational. So I'm really happy to have you here. It is such a blessing.
Oh, Linda, what a welcome. Thanks so much. Got shivers.
Oh, isn't that great? I love those. While we begin, I just found everything I highlighted so much in the book. I really found it spoke to me. And I'd like to begin with just asking you, what is tribe to collective? What does that mean?
It's a concept that came quite a few years ago. And for me, it kind of represents a journey that most, maybe all, I don't know, that I think we're moving towards. The tribe representing that state of separation, fear-based organization of humans. And we're releasing the fear. And when we release fear, we discover that actually we're all connected and join that collective where it is all one.
Yeah, I think that's so powerful. Fear, is, I know in A Call for Love, I say there's two basic emotions, love and fear. And when I mean fear, which you said also in the book, you said, actually, I would like to say, you said that there's, fear, anger, and what was the other one you used?
Fear, rage, and shame are kind of I used to represent about 9 different low frequency feelings that we carry around historically. But fear, shame, rage.
Exactly. So I always categorize those low frequency vibrations or emotions as fear, but I like how you kind of separated them.
Yeah, I think they all come out of fear.
Yes.
I think I see it and felt it, and it was revealed to me that shame and rage and grief and disgust and jealousy, all of that are actually just different low frequency expressions of fear.
Exactly. I always say for me, for my life, fear, stress, and anxiety, because those have been the biggest for me. But I know rage and shame and anger and all those are so prevalent. Big
delusions that we carry around. Yeah, for thousands of years.
I love that word, delusions. Yes, it is. So you say that you can turn pain into love, which I find fascinating because that's the whole message of A Call for Love. Right. So what do you feel the relationship is between love and consciousness? Love and awareness.
I think they're the same thing. I think that us romantic humans feel the energy of consciousness, that universal energy of connection, unity consciousness. We feel it as love. That's how our nervous systems receive it. It feels safe. It feels juicy. It feels expansive. It feels all consuming. We just want to get in and hug everybody. Everything feels great. Everything feels possible. It feels big. I think we feel consciousness as love in our nervous systems.
Yeah, beautiful. I've been reading Patanjali again, and he says that there's selfless and selfish. Those are the two main themes. And he was saying that in selfish, it's what is in it for me, and selfless is a form and extension of love. So what you're saying is when we extend that love, right, everything abounds, our vibration raises.
Everything. Yeah, absolutely. I think that, I think consciousness itself, everything is consciousness, but the way I see it is that there's sort of consciousness that's kind of squished and dense and stuck. And that's where here in this 3D reality, we're experiencing the discomforts of separation in the experiences, the feelings of fear and shame and rage and grief. That's when consciousness can't quite get in there. It doesn't flow and it feels very separate and individual. When it starts to flow and it starts to reach higher vibrations, that's when we start to feel things like compassion and connection and love. And that's when we feel that energy of connectivity, the collective starts to kick in.
Yes, I love that. And, I'm just, as you're speaking, I don't think our viewers may really understand or know what the title of your book means, Dismantling the Third Dimension. Like some people, I know that there's some people that say we're heading towards the fifth dimension.
Yep.
But I'm not sure our listeners really know what third dimension is.
Yeah, well, so my understanding of, and while I do believe there is a physics behind most things that I speak of, the third dimension was just a label of understanding the limited reality that we are currently in, and that the third dimension is constructed of pain. Pain is the limiting experience. Pain, suffering, fear, shame, and rage is the limiting experience of this 3D reality. Many other people can speak of fourth and fifth dimensions. It's not what I've had access to, information and wisdom on that, but I do see that the 3D, the label that I give it, and I'm hearing more as I've come out of the hole, like I've been sort of hiding for the last 16 years. And as I've emerged, a lot of people are referring to this reality as the 3D. We are coming out of the 3D. Penny Pierce is one of those. She's an author that refers to the us expanding out of 3D into higher dimensions. So the 3D is a pain reality, which is this very dense, squished, contracted state of existence that I believe we're in, and most of us don't even recognize that we're in.
How long do you think we've been in 3D?
Thousands of years. And there are, yeah, and I think there are other people that have greater access to the waves of frequencies that we have been existing in this planet. But I think that, the Kali Yuga, according to the Vedic scriptures, have been saying it's been 28,000 years, for example, that we've been going into a really dense, dark period, and now we're coming out of it. Let's say thousands of years we've been in this delusions of dense fear, shame, and rage.
Yeah, I feel as though, honest, that the 3D is almost that we're just too connected to the physical reality and not the vibrational reality. What do you feel about that?
Yeah, I think it's the same thing, because I think that it is, I think it's the density and contracted states of fear that actually construct this physical reality, more or less. It is so heavy. It is so sticky that that it's really difficult to shift our way out of it. And we highly identify in this very sticky, heavy place with our physical beings and the safety of our physical beings, which I think is very, very tiny, a very tiny part of who we really are. Our non-physical beings, our metaphysical beings, are actually much, much larger than we think we are in this physical reality.
Yeah, it's so true. I really feel that, and I see it, and I feel like this rising coming about, not for everyone, but certainly in my circle, I feel that. And for you, reading your book, you've had a journey. What was your journey?
Well, I came out of before 2006, I was in a very academic space. I would collect degree after degree, trying to find that place of acceptance and worthiness, which I didn't understand I was actually seeking. I was trying to find that professional success. I was also very politically active and committed, working in international development and health promotion. And then in 2006, the roof just blew wide open. And I didn't understand what was happening. It was actually quite terrifying. And over the years, I came to understand that spontaneously, just a lot of energy started activating and cleaning house. It just started clearing out suffering, started clearing out pain. And it was and continues to be a very uncomfortable process of clearing out so much pain, but it was layer after layer after layer, almost on a daily basis. And then that process then continued on to my clients, as in that time, very quickly, by 2009, I'd shifted over to working as a psychotherapist. Instead of working with groups in the world, I was now working one-on-one. And in that one-on-one, I started to understand that I was working at a very energetic level, not just with myself, but with whoever I was coming in contact with, and just releasing the 3D stories, layers after layer. And I don't even think it was just, I don't believe it's just this lifetime of stories. I think that our bodies are imprinted with, encoded with low frequency imprints of fear, shame, and rage that we have encoded in these 3D bodies that now at this time, we have a greater opportunity than I've ever understood to have had to start to shift those low frequencies into high frequencies and to free ourselves from what I think is a real fear-based reality.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. I can hear exactly what you're saying. And I know for myself that I have to say I've had a very privileged life. You know, I want for nothing. I have excellent relations. But I have this mission to share overcoming pain and fear, which is so interesting because it's not really who I am, but I am, through my work, I feel that it could be ancestral, it could be past lifetimes. I don't even know where it's coming from, but I just feel this strong mission to share that when we can be with pain, when we can befriend and be with ourselves, like Pima Chodron says, then we can allow all these things to surface, which you're right, is so dreadfully uncomfortable, painful, and the human condition is to push it away. So to be with that takes so much courage. And that's why even my meditation on this podcast, I include bonus. I just feel like to transform ourselves is to be with ourselves.
Correct. And be with ourselves in ways, as you say, I think are very uncomfortable, which is why we need to see and bring into awareness the ways that we reject each other. We need to hold each other. We need to learn non-judgment. We need to learn acceptance, more deepen that so that that pain can move more freely. It can be, without us getting in the way, it can just move through. And so these conversations, I think, are very important to begin to go, that's pain. That's something we hold, we give space for, we honor even, because it's taught us a lot, as we leave lots of room for it now to move through.
I love in your book, you said that the challenge is to soften into the space of pain, hold space for the pain, sit with the discomfort. And this is the part I really love. Cozy up and have a cuddle.
Yeah, I think exactly that. And that's one of the big messages. We have to change our relationship with pain. Not I don't want it to be there, which is a deep, deep reflex that we've had for thousands of years, and we've needed it until now, especially if we're in privileged places. What a wonderful place to lead, to be able to go, then I have lots of space to clean house. So I can sit here, bring the supports I need in, or provide support as we allow this pain to move through, because I know it's safe, because I know I'm okay. So I can go right in there and get real sweet with this discomfort, get real kind, really accepting, really loving, so which of course allows it to transform and release.
Yeah, but this is what I say during meditation class. You're in a safe place, so let's practice the skills now, holding space for our thoughts, because if you're in a crisis, that's almost, unless you are training yourself in safe places, almost impossible to do.
Clearly. Oh, it still is. Yeah, even when I'm in very, very hypervigilant states, I try and get as quiet as possible, surrender as much as possible, keep my eye on the pain. It's not going to move through in that moment because survival mode is kicked in. And that's the big, giant contracted state, is survival mode. The fear has got a grip, ego's got a grip. So the job when you're in that is to go, okay, but I see you. Even though the grip's really hard, I see you. I'm going to keep seeing you. I'm going to keep knowing that this actually doesn't have to stay, that might not even be real. So that I bring even little bits of consciousness in, just little drabs of consciousness. And then when we get through the crisis, we've kind of brought in enough energy that the transformation is more available. We can shift more easily because we've stayed in the place of the observer, a little bit of detachment, brought in the energy. So it makes healing from that crisis, I think, a little bit more easy.
Yeah, it's like those baby steps. And as I was a school teacher for over 30 years, and there was this story, you might remember it, walking through the woods, bear going through the woods. You can't go over it. You can't go under it. You can't go around it. You gotta go through it.
Right.
And it's muddy and it's scary.
Yeah.
And you're right. One little step at a time. It's like, I always think it's like opening the blind. You just let a little light in, be with it, survive it, and then open it a little bit more and a little bit more and a little bit more, as much as you can handle in each moment.
It's beautiful. And I think that we're getting more and more tools to handle more and more truth and light than ever.
Beautiful. What tools do you have that you could share?
Well, I think we're more capable of recognizing the importance of silence. So meditation is fundamental. I think that more and more people are coming equipped with working with subtle energy. So before, if you had a chiropractor, they may not have been able to work with the subtle energy body. But now I don't go to a massage therapist or an osteopath who hasn't worked with the subtle energy body. We are infusing light and love more and more into our subtle beings, not just working with the gross beings. So I think those are collective tools that are increasing. We're working more and more with the subtle parts of ourselves. And what I've been working with since 2017, I think plant medicine, although there are some challenges, has a lot to offer in releasing those fear stories out of the body. It kind of says, okay, you mind, go for a break over there so that we can release your healing potential, because we know this is too big for you. We know this is too much for you. So we're going to help you along to get some of those stories out of your being. So I think plant medicine has a big role to play. And I think the earth has a beautiful offering that's sort of unflowering right now and probably will continue to go for quite a few decades.
Yes, I do believe that the earth is such a gift, although we are using it, but it has so much to offer us, and healing. It can heal us in so many ways. And I know this is a big interest for you now.
Absolutely. I mean, I had an enormous integration once, and I remember just standing out there, and it was very clear looking at my garden that you're here for me. Like, you're here to help me get through this. There's so much wisdom and intelligence flowing through this beautiful planet that it's kind of here going, you can do this. Here's a little thing here. This might help you a little bit. Here's some wisdom and intelligence over here. Maybe you can chew on this and breathe in that and stare at this. Like, she is there to help guide us and bring intelligence and love and patience and trust into our beings as we are now climbing out of what I think is a very dark hole.
Interesting, because I'm suffering a little bit from high cholesterol. So I went to Sri Lanka, just speaking of plant medicine, and I saw a shaman there. And he says to me, you have high cholesterol.
Mm-hmm.
He says to me, your blood is thick. It's not your fault. It's hereditary. And he said, I should eat a small clove of fresh garlic. He said from India. I don't know where I'd get it in Canada, but basically as organic as I can get. Clove of garlic each dinner. Just mix it in, with whatever I'm eating, lentils
Raw.
raw. It should be raw. And then he said I'd be fine. And then of course, now a lot of my family members are taking heart medicine, cholesterol medicine, I should say. And so I feel like, wow, here's one source that said, take the plant, using the plant as medicine. And then, of course, the intervention of which we sometimes really need to honor and need. But so I'm really thinking, wow, he was so definite that if I took this garlic, I'd be fine. And here the Western medicine practitioner is saying, if I take the pill, I will be fine. Just very interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that we are extremely out of balance in most places of the planet right now. And I see that allopathic medicine, Western medicine, is necessary to manage those really And gross, not as disgusting. Gross is very physical, those really gross manifestations of our imbalance. That's why we've had this sort of big intrusions from allopathy. The more we're in balance, then when we go out of balance, we can use the more subtle medicines, which are the earth medicines that can come in, and then that can right our balance. So I think they're necessary. One is a reflection of how, I mean, they're both a reflection of where we are in balance or out of balance. The more imbalance, sorry, go ahead, Linda.
No, I think plant medicine can complement. Is this what you're trying to say?
Yeah, it can. I mean, I think that they can work together. If you've got a broken leg, that's a big imbalance. That's something that needs some big medicine. But if your imbalance is not that kind of extraordinary pain, then yeah, I think that this more subtle earth medicines are a way to go. And the meditations are a way to go. And exercises, different types of exercises, and breath work. Those are more subtle medicines that can bring you back into balance. But if the imbalance is big because we're so far out of balance, then we need those allopathic medicines to do the big extra and not always wisely, and there's always flaws and they're not perfect, but I think that that's why they're there and why we've needed them.
No, definitely. There are times that I need and am so grateful for our medical system here in Canada, even for all its flaws. I mean, it has been so powerful and such a real, I'm really grateful for it.
Yeah, absolutely. But as with everything, it's got its own wounds that we need to transcend as well. Mm-hmm.
Wonderful. I would, as we're talking about these emotions, such as pain, I would like to dive into another set of emotions, which I would really love to hear your take on this. Victim mentality. Mm-hmm. What is I have this yin and yang inner dialogue with myself about victim mentality. Can you shed some light on that?
Yeah. And I'm always cautious because I always want to honor the pain story, the pain that somebody's experienced. But I think most of us recognize that the power comes when we can see what that pain taught us, why maybe that pain landed there, or how I am sitting with that pain. And when we start to bring awareness into what that pain was there to do and how it served us, then we free ourselves from our pain. And often we hear from a lot of people who are especially walking a particularly quote unquote spiritual path that they say, X never would have happened unless I'd gone through that shitstorm, excuse my language. So I can see why I needed to be that uncomfortable in order to get to this understanding. If we come from a framework then that says, well, then really, which I believe, I've decided to come down here into this pain reality in order to learn from the pain reality, that's my choice. And I want to own then all pain, whether this 3D mind understands it or not, some part of me does. And I want to release myself from any part of me that thinks that I can't overcome something, that there's something here I can't learn from, that there's something here that I'm not meant to own completely in order to mine all of its wisdoms. And I can't mine all of its wisdoms unless I go, yes, that pain is all mine. That thing there that's hurting in my body, I've got to own all of it. Every tiny molecule of discomfort, it can't be anybody else's responsibility. Therefore, I can't blame anybody. If I want to allow my entire being to get in there to heal it and transform it, it's got to be all mine. I can't hand it over. Otherwise, it's going to be stuck. Victim says it's somebody else's fault. Victim says, I'm uncomfortable. This is your fault. And I think that is now very disempowering. And I used to work in that, we don't want to victim blame. But from an understanding of our own power and our own capacity and need to heal, we need to own it. We have to, otherwise it's going to stay there. So if it's a big giant pain, we go, yes, I'm sorry, this really hurt. Of course it hurt. The world's a bad place. I'm really sorry for you. But then when we start to move past that really acute pain phase, we can arrive at a place that goes, okay, I'm ready. And now I can go, I can see it all. I can be with it all. I've got to own it all. I got to let go of anybody else's responsibility so that now I can transform it and turn this into a higher frequency of love and compassion. And I can only do that if I own all of it and let go of any part of me that feels a victim to somebody else. I think it's about my own empowerment to make sure that, and the victim story comes up all the time, right? Any conflict with my partner, oh, you blah, 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 right? It really wants to start blaming. But if I'm going to transform and transcend anything, I've got to bring him back into me and go, what is it about my reality that I created that I don't want to see, that I have to take responsibility for if I'm here to turn it into love, turn it into peace, turn it into connection? I have to own it. It's all mine.
That is so powerful, because I am being faced by this in just circumstances day in and day out these days. I can't believe it that I am getting into these conversations with people who are really just, I don't want to say complaining, but sharing their pain story of how they have been victimized. And I don't mean big. It could be very small, like somebody insulted somebody, which is not necessarily an insult, but they took it as an insult.
Right.
And I am witnessing it, and I'm listening to these stories, and I don't really know how to respond to people, because I love that you said you have to honor people for their feelings. You know, they are in a sense of pain. They feel they have been treated unjustly, and maybe so. And I'm not judging, so because it is what it is. But I feel like my next step is to hold space for people to have the courage to move through it. But I feel like there's blinders on people that it takes so much courage to be with that. And it's almost impossible for some people.
And that makes sense. I think it's thousands of years of pain we're trying to transcend. We are going to need a lot of courage to get ourselves out of victim stories, to own it, to get back in my own being, in my own reality, instead of doing what we've always done, which is looking for the threat out there. It's a lot of courage. So if somebody wants to go and be in their complaint, my work is not to judge it, because of course they're going to complain. We've been doing it for thousands of years. Of course they are. But it is to find a way for me to be at peace with it, for me not to feed it, for me not to judge it. That's my own personal work. And to model what it is to sit in ownership, and to model what it is to sit in a high frequency, to model what it is not to live in a culture of complaint, to take myself out of that 3D reality so I'm no longer feeding it and keeping us stuck in that place. What can I do when other people are in that space? That's the only place that I can look. And that's not to change complainers, not to change people who feel a victim, but it is for me to sit in the highest, most loving space possible so that I can lift myself up. And if anybody wants to join me and sit in this frequency, then here we go.
I completely respect and honor that. I know that I'm a student of A Course in Miracles. I study many wisdom masters, and their mentality or their framework is that when you see somebody being a victim to their thoughts, right, that I need to say, where am I being a victim in my life?
Exactly.
So like it's a mirror. So then I think, okay, what have I said today or yesterday or done that was kind of victim mentality? And then I kind of work on that myself, because I feel like everyone's just mirroring to me what is going on inside of me.
Exactly. Can you feel, as you and I are talking, like the frequency's rising? It's getting crackly, like we're hitting on a truth, right? And that's when the energy goes ting. So I think it's a vital, vital lesson. And it's a hard one because we're so well versed in being the victim, and we're so well versed in looking at the other person for crap that we do, right? So, and not looking at ourselves. It is the hardest journey to look at your own pain. Ego is well trained for thousands of years not to look at our pain, to avoid looking at our own stories. It is very difficult, which is why I think we need to get help and support and create communities and and see each other lovingly so that we can pull ourselves out of that really sticky but necessary habit.
I have my one sister loves this quote. it's not happening to you, but for you.
Exactly. Same thing. Yeah. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that takes courage. That takes real
A
courage.
lot. And that's why when somebody's behaving badly, which I don't think is a real thing, it really is to flip my own fear, shame, rage and look at it and go, wow, like that's, I have my own difficult journey and I can see yours is not easy either. I honor you, brother, sister, for taking that on. I don't need to have it in my living room because it might be a bit messy, your story, but I can honor it and maybe put a boundary up.
Yeah, you don't want to be like a burr that sticks on you. Like you don't want that energy. No, you want to really shut it off. And so I always say that the higher vibration I can radiate at, then may that just shine more light and empathy and kindness to others.
Bingo. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Really beautiful.
It is beautiful, Linda. It is.
In your book, Dismantling the Third Dimension, you say none of it is real or there is nothing going on. What are you really saying when you, what are you saying when you say that? What do you mean when you're saying that?
So for me, it was sort of this, the logic just kept winding its way down. And in the beginning, it took a couple of years as I was releasing pain. So I'd have something in the morning, have a giant cry, a big release, something would move out of me in yoga, some awfulness would come through, ping, and I'd be in the shower going, wow, the world feels really light right now. What just happened? And suddenly the thing that bothered me didn't bother me. And that would be in a second. So eventually I got to this place after a few years going, but if it can be there 1 second and then not be there the next, is it actually real? Can it actually be called real? So I began to understand as I continued to release pain stories and layers of trauma, intergenerational trauma, past life trauma, ancestral trauma, whatever you believe it to be, I began to understand that I think that we've just constructed layers of pain, which construct layers of core belief, which construct layers of perception, which construct layers of behavior. So I think we can peel all that back down, release the fear, and suddenly none of it actually is there at all. Like it doesn't really even exist. So I really challenge this pain reality that when we're ready, we can understand that in shedding the pain, we're shedding a reality that is not fixed and therefore is not truth, is not immutable, is not a universal law. It's just something that we've created in this giant, classroom drama of how to transform this fear into something beautiful. So I became very convinced in the worst throes of the deepest agony that it is very important for me to understand that even this worst nightmare where I'm just like, I'm not sure I can do this anymore, that even this is just not real, that this is not fixed, that this is not immutable.
As you're speaking, I just have this word that comes up, illusion. How many stories and rules and codes am I making up that are really an illusion? And the pain and suffering I cause myself for even creating deadlines or for mental processes that I have just made up. For me, it's an illusion. I always have to remind myself.
Yeah, I think so. And for those that are ready, and we're not all ready to have that conversation, to really begin to discuss the delusions that I think our pain really is, even frees us even more. We kind of see it and we go, oh my Lord, you're not even real. That even facilitates it peeling off even faster. I think it really moves it forward. So for those who are ready, I really want to have that conversation of, well, is it real? Are you sure it's real? Maybe. All of that discomfort and that shame and that rage, maybe not so much. Can we entertain that possibility? And having those conversations, I think, feeds our liberation.
Yes. And I often say, I don't know what's best for me.
Mm-hmm.
Often I do not know what's best, and surrender.
Scary, isn't it? And
It
so
is
perfect.
scary. It's scary if you feel like you're not going to have a net to fall into. You know, back in the day, they would have that when they were building community, as a school teacher would have it, and there'd be two people, and one person in front would fall into the other person's arm, and you had to trust that they were going to catch you. We're not trusting that we are going to be caught, that we are going to be supported. And so we are, I feel, I'm going to speak for myself, that I can surrender when I know I'm going to be taken care of and supported and held. And, you know, that doesn't come from like a person. It comes from, for me, from the universe, or from, you know, just that belief system.
Yeah, and I think it comes from that disconnection from this 3D reality, because this 3D reality hasn't been very trustworthy. We haven't been behaving very nicely towards each other for a long, long time, right? We've been raping and pillaging and lighting each other on fire for thousands of years. And so in this reality, it makes sense that we have our nervous system and all the fear stories saying, but it's not trustworthy. I can't trust here. And that's why it's so hard and really courageous to let that go and connect to those fine threads of intelligence that are coming in going, I think you can trust now. I think now you can try it on. Let's see what happens when you try it on. And I think that's what we've been doing since the 60s, 70s, 80s is going, here's a little thread, try this on and see if you can build a little trust in the fact that there's something so much bigger going on, that actually there's a bigger lesson going on, that you are much bigger than your mind thinks you are. And that this pain, maybe you don't need it so much. Maybe it's not so real. So I do think that there's a real process of shedding so that we can go, right, actually, this is what it all is. It is about trusting that this reality is no longer what I'm founded in, what I'm about.
Do you think it's the ego that's really protecting it, that thinks it's protecting us?
Absolutely. No, 100%. I think ego and pain are the same thing. And it's just, I think it's just serving its own end. And that's why it's even more difficult. It's really deeply embedded, this fear, and it's so deeply convincing and believes that it needs to convince us to hold on to that fear. Because if we let go of that fear, it's going to be very, very dangerous. Who's going to come around the corner and get you, right? So it's telling us, if you let go of that fear, that shame, or that rage, or that jealousy, any of it, that bad things will happen to you, which is why getting out of patterns is so hard, right? Changing a bad habit is so hard, because ego's there whispering at us, telling us that actually it's scarier to let go of that bad habit than it is to go into change.
My parents used to say, the devil you know is better than the devil you don't.
No, and that's what ego says. I'm the devil you're going to love for a long, 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 long time. And now we're really just trying to get that beautiful devil off our back.
Yeah, it's not easy.
No, I think this is really hard. And I don't think we should. I think that we can get into a conversation that underestimates how difficult it can feel in the beginning. I also think that difficulty is a bit of a delusion, maybe entirely a delusion that we also need to get through before we realize, oh, I even constructed the difficulty. There's actually none of that's happening either. But I think that pulling ourselves out can feel really challenging.
Do you have any recommendation or a little tool or technique? I always come into my breath to help calm down my nervous system. You know, I try to mention to some people, you know, let's just try taking a deep breath, but they don't really some people are not open to that.
Or trust it. They don't trust that they're actually going to do anything. So I think there's, if you're talking about sort of regulating that anxiety, that fear space that we're in, I'm not sure. Like, I think we have to build our toolbox and trust as we're building our toolbox that the more that we practice silence and presence every day, the more it'll be there for us. The more that we practice our breath work, the more it's going to be there for us. The more that we shift into gratitude versus blaming, the more that we know that that's going to feed our path. So I think we need to keep trusting that we need to keep building and feeding and practicing and filling up our toolboxes so that we connect to that trust in those those really innate wisdoms.
Yeah, my toolbox has certainly gotten larger over the years. And I find for me, the two biggest life transformative practices for me have been stillness.
Yep.
Just not doing, just
Yes.
wait, just hold space.
Mhm.
And the second is for me, self-compassion, because it allows me to be with it, to shift
Yeah.
my perspective. I can't shift my perspective if I'm beating myself up or somebody else.
Right. Absolutely. I also look at it as directing the energy of compassion towards self is a healing. Look at it as a physics. We are taking this high energy of love and we're putting it into fear. The more we do that, the more we trust it, the more we feel it, the more we allow it, the more that the energy of love directed into fear will transform it. The more we trust it. And I tell my clients that if you're starting out a practice of self-compassion, you need about 2 years to gain credibility. Right? It's like being with somebody who's abusive and then they walk through the door and suddenly they're nice to you one day and you're like, what? Like, what are you doing? You don't trust it. You don't trust the love and the compassion that comes at you. So if you've been really hard and pecking at yourself and hostile towards yourself for years, you need to practice that intervention of self-compassion. Give it a couple of years before there's something in you that goes, okay, I trust that actually you're not here to spring it on me or to harm me or to trick me, that I believe that you actually can heal me. So I think it's important to recognize our own limitations and some of the work that needs to shift some of these really old low frequency habits.
On a call for love, I say all love begins with self-love.
All.
And why is it so hard for us to love ourselves? You know, when I was smaller, when I was little, I remember once thinking that if you loved yourself, it was being selfish.
Yeah.
There was this mentality. I know it's shifted now, but all love begins with self-love. If we cannot love ourselves, I say this all the time, how can we love others, the planet, everything?
Yeah, absolutely. We don't have it to give if all we are is emitting pain stories, right? So we need to heal our own inner pain stories ourselves as one source in order for the cup to flow over and to emanate outward for sure. Yeah, I think that's a big story. Why are we so hard on ourselves? And I think we can pick at it in all sorts of ways, right? Why we're filled with shame, and our shame wants to control ourselves by going, don't expect to be loved. Don't expect you're good. Then you won't be disappointed when you experience rejection, right? So there's all sorts of coping strategies embedded within denying ourselves love from ourselves. But in the end, it's all just layers of delusion.
It is. In your book, you say, what is real love, compassion, gratitude is true, and the rest we leave behind.
Yeah. I think all of that fear, shame, and rage is what we're here to transform and to recognize that that where we're moving into are the higher reflections of our beings. And we feel those higher reflections in the practices of gratitude, right? And in compassion, acceptance. That's how we can bring those higher frequencies in as practices, behaviors, and perceptions into this lower reality, this dense reality.
So true. I love it and I believe it and I try to live it. What do you want to offer to those who are reading this book?
Yeah, thanks for that question, Linda. So I've been taking notes compulsively every time I would, like often when I'd have a giant integration, I'd have access to this is what's happening. I get it. I understand it. And so I compulsively write that down. And it was last year or the end of 2021. It's been such a blur, but it was only recently within the last 2 years that I went, there's a book here. Oh my God. And then it just flooded. It just came out, pulled in the right people to finish it, edit it, and it just exploded. It was a very fast process. It felt very compulsive. And what do I want? I think we've touched on a bit of that. And one is to start to really add a conversation about the delusion of pain, to change the relationship to pain. And that's not to deny it some more and resist it some more, but actually, how do we get in there and love it? Because in that we can transform it, that we need to release our attachment to pain. And we are so unconsciously attached to pain that we need to bring awareness to how we're connected to pain, how we deny its existence. We're so connected. It's like, this is too much that I can't even acknowledge it. This takes up so much space in my being that I just have to pretend it's not even there. We need to bring that into awareness. We need to start talking about the ways in which we keep holding pain stories in our reality and therefore recycling them and recreating them. So in this conversation, I think I'm hoping to bring more awareness, how we are unnecessarily carrying it forward and how this is a time that we can start releasing it through changing our relationship to our discomfort, ancient discomfort.
I think you do a beautiful job at that. And I think what you are also doing in mindfulness, it says the common humanity. What your message is also that you're not alone. Like, this is something that we're all going through. And when you know it's not just you, then it becomes easier to open up to the experience of healing and transcending.
Trusting. Well said, Linda. Yeah, well said.
Really beautiful. I'm so happy and grateful that I literally stumbled upon this book, and then we had a discussion so that you could be on A Call for Love, because this is my mission. I feel as though we're always on a journey, and where we are in the moment is just a beautiful place. For me, my journey has led from education to now, health and wellness. And A Call for Love is really knowing where we stand. Are we standing in a place of love or fear and all the emotions that come with it? And I think that we both share in many ways a parallel of this experience. So I'm so grateful that you have been on A Call for Love.
Oh, Linda, really, it's my total privilege, my honor to be here. I'm very, very grateful to share this space, to generate this energy, this connection. It's just truly beautiful. Truly, my heart's full.
Yeah, I feel it too. So how can people, get your book, reach out to you? Please share.
The book's available, Amazon. You can order it in bookstores. There are some bookstores that have it. So it's on Barnes and Noble's carrying it, Indigo, like all the major bookstores are carrying it. Small bookstores, you can order it. You can find me through my website, tribetocollective.com, all one word. You want to reach out. I do work one-on-one, although I'm booked into 2024. I do retreats in order to create community, healing through community. Some of them are plant medicine, some of them are more silent. There's a podcast just for reflections. I throw reflections on a podcast to try and generate thought and feeling. And I have video modules in order, once again, to feed the reflections on how do we start to think of ourselves outside of this 3D reality. So there's lots of stuff on Tribe to Collective. If you're looking to, if this feeds you and this sort of sparks something, there's ways to keep that going. But I'd love to hear from you too. Anybody who wants to reach out.
Well, I will place all those links in the show notes so that everyone can find you at just a quick click.
Thanks. I really appreciate it, Linda.
Thank you, Antonia.
Right. All the best. Lots of love. Big hug.
Yeah, big hugs.
Thank you for listening. It would mean so much to me if you could share this episode with someone you feel could benefit from its message. And subscribe to A Call for Love podcast to receive new weekly episodes every Tuesday. Head over to globalwellnesseducation.com to learn more.